Hey, Helen, great to have you along as well. My
Thank
name's
you.
Keith Whelan. Thumbs up. Thank you so
Right.
much. Um, yeah, we're just having a chat here with one of the other clubs, Helen, basically about how we're incentivizing volunteers, but I'll get into it now. But yeah, Lisa, that's what you need to be doing. I'll talk through more now, but very much start small, think big. And I was saying that to yourself as well, Helen, in terms of volunteers' expectation versus reality. Um, First of all, you need a volunteer strategy, right? You're going nowhere without a volunteer plan or an ideology of what you want to achieve for volunteering in your club or association. Now, there'll be numerous resources out there for you to utilize to have that template. Okay. Um, Most state sporting bodies will have that as a resource, basically, but you need a volunteer plan or strategy indicatively for the next 3 to 5 years. And if you're starting at the start, that's a natural osmosis, basically, of being realistic. That's going to take you a couple of years to turn around a volunteer mindset of what is there presently or is not there presently to what your volunteering can become and should become, basically. Now, that's not just general public volunteering, that's about thinking about corporate volunteering as well, right? Getting the corporates an opportunity to come in and do a day at the club in some way, shape, or form, right? But also collaboration with other clubs, other community entities, not for profits, charities, all of those things. So you need to be, as a club, as government now describe clubs as community hubs. They don't see them as sporting clubs, they see them as adjuncts to the community. And that's what you're selling in terms of ascertaining funding through fundraising or sponsorship or even grants. So it's all led into this, basically. So your volunteer management strategy would be part of your overall strategic plan or business plan for the club. Right. So it would be a major component of that plan. So you need to rejuvenate your plan presently or start with a new plan. Why can't I change the light? Can't change the light. Oh, there we go. No, we're good. Got there. Thanks. So it's the backbone of Australian sport, right? This is how we've 2.3 million active volunteers in Australia, 165 million hours, 80% of club administration in Australia is done by volunteers. Huge amount. Yes, question. Oh, you're ticking all the boxes. Okay, yeah. But you see, those figures don't reflect what actually is happening, which is burnout, which is exodus, which is basically people being apathetic and then having enough. And the point you've raised that it's only a core of 4 or 5 people doing absolutely everything, Lisa, in the one club. Should be ideally 10 to 11 people doing absolutely everything. Now, you have a natural working party already, which is called your committee or board. They should be doing the heavy lifting on the blue sky stuff, the strategy, the planning, the enacting to a degree, right? Ideally, in a perfect world, as a club, you'd have a volunteer coordinator, right? And you put a position description against them as well. And they would coordinate the volunteers. And they would even be doing that on a volunteer basis. All right. So ideally, that's who you're having in there. And so they would be looking at creating the volunteer position description. They would be looking at doing the checks and balances, the police check, the working with children check, basically the legality and the governance all around that. They would also be checking in with them regularly. They would be doing a 6 month or 12-month review of them as volunteers. Are you happy? Are you not happy? What's the club doing well? What's the club doing poorly? Right? How can we change? How can we learn? How can we adapt? You're looking at, do I need to increase the diversity in my club? Do I need more First Nations? Do I need more multicultural? Do I need more female participation in the sport? And actively going down that road. So, clubs I work with now will be partnering with schools, they'll be partnering with TAFE, they'll be partnering with universities, they'll be partnering with community entities, basically, to look at attracting people, not only to their sport, but attracting mindsets to their committee or board, right? And acumen, all right, at the end of the day. But it all comes back to having a plan, a process, procedure. So without an ideology, you can't do any of these. These are great figures. It shows, reflects that we are extremely and have been traditionally excellent at volunteering for sport. These figures are going to drop off a cliff in years to come very dramatically because baby boomers have been the best thing ever for this country. But Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z feel a little bit different about volunteering because they're predominantly time poor. So we're time poor as Australians. So it's very much understanding that, right? That this reality that you existed for so long in is not going to happen moving forward as a club. Yeah. It does. And ideally, you're looking for someone who's already done it before in a community entity or a charity who understands what they're doing. Yeah, it is a job. So I would say they need to be remunerated in some way, shape, or form. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily financially. It can be other ways, right? As we talked about before, as I said, I've been entity in Victoria's giving them a phone card or a petrol card, right? Giving them a phone to remunerate them basically in some way, shape, or form. But yes, in a perfect world, I work with clubs and associations that are financially remunerating their volunteer coordinator. Now, nominal, right? But if you look at volunteering Australia and volunteering WA, how much is a volunteer worth per hour now if you were to pay them?
Oh,
What's the hourly rate?
yeah.
No, there is a standardization. There's a fee that this is the value that's been put to volunteers in Australia presently in terms of a dollar value per hour. Keep going. It's between $40 and $50,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So if you're applying for a grant or you're applying for funding or you're putting in a sponsorship proposal, you're using that as an accumulator. You're quantifying all the hours that you put in kind as a club, and you come out with a balanced figure around that. But that's what your volunteers are worth. Now, you're not paying them that, but that's what they're worth. So anyone who's shrewd of mind and comes on board as a volunteer coordinator and you're going to pay them, you're going to have to look at those kind of that financial outlay to get it right. Now, if that's your work, you're going to pay them. Obviously, you can remunerate them in other ways, but very much again, you need to be thinking about getting the best of the best to do this, or else habituating yourself, basically allowing. This is why the genesis has to come from the actual board or the committee of a mindset that we're going to do this right. There's only one right way of doing this, and that's it. So this is where it can't be a one-person endeavor to change the volunteer mindset in your organization. It needs to be a consensus of the board and then consensus in your organization. So you take it from mindset of board into a volunteer management workshop, which you do internally. Then you're going to apply to basically apply it to have a volunteer coordinator, which you're going to appoint from internally or recruit and then remunerate or not remunerate. But that's your process. And that's going to take 12 months realistically. But it's about getting there now. Because again, coming back to your comment, Lisa, I can't come back here in a year time and you're telling me you're still one of the 4 people or 5 people that do everything in the club. That's not realistic of you. I shouldn't have that expectation on you. I shouldn't come, I shouldn't have you come to a club as a volunteer just expecting that I can use you as much as possible. I am more interested in volunteers for their intellectual property and acumen than I am their physical abilities. So I want people who understand accountancy and marketing and legal and doing business and management of people, HR background. I can get anyone for limbs. I can get anyone for arms and legs. But I'm interested in skill sets. That's what you're trying to recruit in volunteers. That's what you're trying to recruit in your board is skill sets, different diversity of skill sets, not just to take any bum on a seat. Yes, but that's where we would have to reverse it, Lisa, to incentivize them to put their hand up. You're right, because why would I give my time up to your club? What makes me get off the couch and stop watching Netflix to come out in the night and support you in some way, shape, or form? Now, there's many different reasons. Some people do it, as said, for altruism, that they just want to give back to society and the community. Other people want to be remunerated. But in the middle is the general populace who just feel they want to be part of a community, particularly people who come here as migrants or immigrants who want to be part of Australia. Sports clubs haven't looked at this viably, where you have a migrant community who've moved here, including students who want to be part and immerse themselves into society. Well, what's a better conduit than the local sporting club? It's a fantastic opportunity to immerse yourself into Australian society, make friends, get to know other people, be part of a movement that calls a purpose, which is the club, and get fit and basically have fun. That's all achievable if you have an ideology and a mind to do it, a board that drives it, that prevents you and 4 or 5 other people doing everything at the club all the time, every time. Is that okay? Makes sense when you say it fast in an Irish accent, doesn't it? I know. It's great. And thank you. Good night. Okay. So it's very much being realistic around it, right? They're the heartbeat of every club. What I don't see a lot of is recognition for volunteers either. They're just taken for granted. I never get that. So most the great clubs I work with have a volunteer awards night at the end of every season. Yeah. But not a club awards night, a volunteer. Do you award a volunteer of the year? See, that's different though. You? Oh, will I give it to me again this year? Decisions, decisions. That's a tough one. All right. So, true value of the volunteers is club survival, community connection, and personal well-being. That's what you're selling to people to come to as a volunteer. So, imagine the club wasn't there. You're going since 1868. Imagine you're going to capitulate tomorrow. All that legacy and history just sunk, right? So that's the legacy. Community connection. You're all integral in the community. Every club, any sporting code is integral in the community. They'd be a void again if they weren't existence. And personal well-being, especially in these times, mental health, physical health, people need an outlet. They need to be part, again, a movement, a cause, a purpose, a social outlet that helps them with their mental health and helps them with their physical health. Well, hello, there's the rowing club.
Yeah.
You can fulfill both. So you need to sell. So rowing clubs need to get better at selling themselves, right? Profile, profile, profile. People can only help you if they know you exist. So you need to start talking about volunteering narrative, the opportunity to volunteer, put it out in your socials, have it on your website. Opportunity that basically volunteers, when you're going to start the volunteering program, having a volunteer open day. People come along and test it out. Did they like it? Did they not like it? Then you're going to do a follow-up and appraisal for yourself. You're going to have a volunteer as part of your club awards. Who's the volunteer of the year? Okay. You got enough homework, Lisa? How we doing online? All okay?
Yep.
Thank you. This is why people volunteer. Make a difference, social connection, personal growth, and family support. Right? Particularly if their kids are involved as well. Obviously, there's an opportunity for them to join on board as volunteers. So the kids are participating, all right, but they want to join as a volunteer, mum or dad. So you're playing, they're your four pillars. That's what you're selling back to them. Each person will dive in as they see fit, right? This is why we have so many run clubs now in Australia, because it's a social connection. You know what? I might meet my next partner at the run club, and that's true, right? If you want to go dating now, you go join a run club, all right? Make a difference in society, personal growth. Like the great clubs I work with, they have volunteer programs, educational programs. They're volunteers as an incentivization to volunteer. You volunteer so many hours, you go on a paid community college course. You go on a paid TAFE course. You get professional credits. You get professional skills that you can use for yourself in your own professional growth. That's done conjunctively with TAFE or university. So there's a benefit to volunteering. They accumulate so many hours, they go off and get a course subsidized. Win-win. Okay. Tailoring roles, match skills to talent. I don't see enough of this. We'll just take any volunteer for any role, or you're putting in square peg, round hole. What are your skill sets, Lisa? So you're the treasurer, right? Makes natural alignment. But if I gave you something else to do in the club, you probably have a stab at it, but it's not your best fit, right? So I have to, that's where I'm doing the screening. I'm vetting. I'm doing a volunteer interview to say, what are your skill sets? What would you like to do? How many people get asked that when they come to a club? What would you like to do? Not what you're told to do. You just sit over there and write reports. All right. Flexible commitments. We live in the world of hybrid now. So what can they do online for you? What can they do working away from the club? That they only have to be at the club sporadically, but they're still an ardent volunteer and a sense of belonging. Right, we're coping with social isolation post COVID. So again, you as a club, you're given an opportunity to do this. participate in something, again, it's going to be good for their mental health and well-being, but also a sense of belonging in terms of place, in terms of society. Okay. So again, it's about embracing society. One of the clubs that I work with now will do an acknowledgement of country, have a First Nations Day, right? Why are you smiling at me? A multicultural day. These are not obligations, right? So I'm just giving those as ideas. You don't have to do any of these, but it's understanding the society that you live in, right? And the perception of that of you as well. Okay. So volunteer-friendly club culture. Everyone tells me they've got one, but are you reflecting diversity? Are you promoting respect, and do you encourage participation? Because that's the narrative you should be talking to your volunteers about, right? Diversity that we're all coming from. Obviously, my accent's not Albany original. So it's very much, again, thinking about who can come along and be part of the club, promote respect, a culture of fairness, respect, and open communication, and encourage participation, all ages and abilities. So I'm working with a club at the moment who've got a disability action plan for their volunteers. So even if you got an intellectual disability or you got a physical disability, you are more than welcome at this club. Because we will look at volunteers. We don't discriminate. We're inclusive as a club. So those people can still contribute in certain ways. So we are inclusive as a club to allow that to happen. And why wouldn't you? It reflects society, right? Yeah, that's an issue. Yeah, yeah. But remember, everything doesn't have to happen at the boat shed. Yeah, and they could even do it from home. They're still a volunteer at home. Yeah, I know. If they were to participate, you're right, you still have to encompass that, but they can still do a lot of work remotely for you. They're still a volunteer, right? Okay. Recognition and appreciation, and public acknowledgement of social events, personal thanks, being consistent, not just grabbing them and run, never to be heard from again. So the three words I really want you to understand today about volunteering are attain, retain, maintain. That's a good volunteer management plan. Attain, retain, maintain. That's what your obligation is with volunteers. Okay. But please acknowledge them. Clubs go years without thanking their volunteers or acknowledging them. Right. And particularly the personal thanks. You know, I have a club that sends out Christmas cards to their volunteers. You know, simple gesture, but goes a long way, right? For the sake of a pack of Christmas cards, right? Because thank you and please and thank you, three most important words in the English language. Recognition fuels retention. That's why we're doing it. People love to be name checked and dropped in, right? Or win an merit award or a club person of the year. No, Lisa, you didn't appreciate winning club person of the year? For some people it is. You can't think every other volunteer thinks your way. You're doing it for your reasons, right? And everyone respects that. Yeah, but not everyone's going to think your way. People volunteer, people come to work in a workplace for different reasons, right? Some people have career aspirations, some people have a job, sometimes it's just a wage, right? So people don't, you can't pontificate that to others, Lisa, that you must think this way. And that's the rule one. No, no, don't squirm your face at me now. Because you got to be inclusive. You got to think the world is made up with diversity, right? But if we get it right, it works very, very well because we need that diversity of mindset, right? So it's understanding that I'm not going to pigeonhole you, but at the same time, it's releasing you to the best of your capabilities. So you would have said that to me. I would expect you to say that to me if you came in day one as a volunteer. I would have liked you to say that. And if not, I would try to drag it out of you, right? Because I need to know where should I put Lisa as the best to get the best out of her, that she's happy and we're happy at the end of the day. Okay. Otherwise, you're not going to be, you're gone in 6 months. All right. So But then I have to check in with you in a year's time. So you may be doing a consummate job as a treasurer, right? You're not cooking the books, are you? Okay. You're not confirming or denying here in a public forum. But it's very much basically that. Then I'll check in 12 months going, are you still happy being a treasurer? Are you happy to continue? Do you want to do something else in the club? Do you want to learn something else in the club? Interesting questions, right? So to recruit them, define clear roles because it is a position description, personal invitations. That's building your own CRM and your own network and your own database because then it's hot, tepid, cold. You're looking at rejuvenating ones that have been there in the past that may have lapsed and left 2, 3 years ago, trying to get them back into the family. And then you're trying to appeal to completely someone else differently who's never contemplated coming to the rowing club and being a volunteer at the end of the day. And that means strategic advertising and having a communication strategy around that through your socials, your community groups, and targeted digital channels as well. So it's very much, again, plan, 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 and then plan some more. Questions? Yeah.
Hours a week do you do? Do you enjoy your job?
Yeah.
What other things could you do?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people replied this questionnaire?
Little or none.
Maybe. That's it.
Yeah.
No one else.
Yeah.
No one else did it. So I don't actually know what anyone else did. So how do I define the roles? Because I don't know what any of them actually did.
Yeah. Because they see that as just spam, right? So it's really at your AGM or at a club meeting, you're going, no, no, this is mandatory. You're going to have to do this. If you want to progress the club, to progress the opportunity for you as a volunteer, we're going to have to do this. So this is why it's about organizational culture. This is why it's about a whole, this is about change management. This is about a whole new way of doing things as a club in 2025 that wasn't the way in 1955. And so you're all now, and I know you can't pursue the same option again because that's just the definition of insanity because you're going to get the same response. So you got to find a different way, which means getting them in to talk to them about that basically one-on-one or as a group, basically, and have it as an addendum to a session that's already taken place in the club. It only needs to be a half-hour meeting, right? But just saying down terms and conditions and understanding there will be maybe a natural osmosis, which is an exodus. People going, well, I'm not putting up with this, I'm leaving. And that's the fear factor with clubs. Oh, we can't let them go under any circumstances. Yes, you can, and you should, because you shouldn't have a bad apple in there that doesn't want to be there if they're not doing the work. Exactly. Well, people want it for pedigree and status, right? Or the free t-shirt, right? So you paid for it. You see, I would have given you that free as a volunteer. All right. It's going to be a harder workshop than I thought, right? But you can see my point about I should be able to get the free volunteer. If I commit so many hours as a volunteer, I should get that t-shirt for free. But only if I meet that exactly. Then I have to buy it otherwise. How much are you charging for your t-shirts? 40 bucks for a club t-shirt. They sell t-shirts for $8 in Kmart. Right. Well, let's play the elitist view then, basically. Why not? That'll go down well, won't it? See my point, though? And I'm playing devil's advocate, obviously, when I say all this, right? Is a t-shirt going to be enough for certain people? No, it isn't, right? Because the mindset has been always, here's your club polo shirt, be happy. No, I want more, need more. And it's the simple things. So if I'm volunteering, do I get a discount on family membership? I don't want a t-shirt. I want family membership. And I want a discount on that. So don't give me a $50 t-shirt when it's not even 50 bucks. See my point? You're not liking me anymore, are you? Selection procedure, warm induction, clear expectations. So what are you trying to ascertain out of the interview process? Have a warm induction, basically. Do an induction. You can't just throw them in the deep end. There needs to be an induction evening for volunteers. Roles, responsibilities, expectations, realities, clear expectations. That's what I'm saying about setting it out from the start at the end of the day. Okay. Baby steps. Do step one, evaluate step one, and then move on to step two. Questions? No? You're afraid to ask me no, yeah? I'm not that bad. Volunteer policies, right? So why they matter. They formalize the management of it. They have a legal alignment and provide clarity for you and them as volunteers on roles, expected conduct, reimbursement. You reimbursing any of your volunteers as treasurer? If I bring you a receipt? No one's getting any money out of you, are they? What are you doing in legality? Great. Did you get the lawyer? Yeah. Did you get the lawyer to read through it? I would, to see if it's legally binding. And have you looked at volunteering WA or volunteering Australia for guiding light principles on that contract? I would. Yeah, I'd get them to look at that. Okay. So you have probity, transparency, legality, ethics, right? And also screening, as I said, people with criminal records, people we need working with children checks, all of the above, right? Needs to be done more than ever before, basically. What's your governance like as a club? Governance. It's going to be a long night, isn't it? Look, luckily we're doing the governance workshop after this one, which will get us through to midnight. Essential policy to implement. So you need a volunteer policy and code of conduct. You have a code of conduct?
Yeah.
Okay, please get one tomorrow. Expenses and reimbursement. You've got that, right? Yeah, you're down pat with that as treasurer. And I know. And grievance procedures. What are you doing with that as a club? Do you have a grievance procedure policy? Need one. You need something, right? As a benchmark of equivalency that I come to you with a complaint as a volunteer. How do you service it? Right before it can escalate. Yes. Yes, the same for members. Anyone in the club, really. Yeah. So it's the same for the board, same with management, same with any paid staff, let alone volunteers, let alone actually sports players. Yeah, without doubt. This is part of the induction as well. They'll be taught this at the induction. So even if they become a registered rower, they're not only there to row, they would do an induction on this. So as much as they're coached on the water, they're coached off the water about being a club person. Right? Expectations equals reality. So we have the Working with Children Protecting National Police certificates and Incorporation Act compliance. So your insurance, your governance, and your reporting obligations as a club. So you need to be cross all those, dot the I's, cross the T's, please. Okay. So supporting and managing your volunteers. Role-specific training, clear documentation on those roles and ongoing development. Not one-off. Once they're inducted in, they're good to go, yes, but you need to look at, they need to do professional development as volunteers. They need to do training, development, workshops on their role, other roles, should be encouraged them to participate because you're looking at volunteers to become committee members eventually. You're looking at that roadmap, GPS strategy through the club. So they join as a participant, they go on to serve as a volunteer, they go on to serve as a committee member thereafter. That's why people are in a club 20, 30, 40 years. So again, it's having that strategy and mindset in your organization to do that. So dedicated coordinators, I mean, advocating a volunteer coordinator, clear communication, not only from the coordinator, but from the club through to the volunteer through email, SMS, regular meetings, and accessible contact points within the club. And digital too. Club volunteer. You got a club volunteer? You got a portal? Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I'd advocate that you do. That's for volunteer rostering, volunteer engagement tracking, and streamlined coordination of them. Yeah. Right, because rostering is going to be a big thing. Who's available when they can commit, when they can't. So you get them to commit to that at the start. You know, can't do Christmas, can't do Easter, can't do July, whatever the case may be. All right. And then obviously engagement tracking, when do they peak? When have we seen an exodus in our volunteers? All right. When are we preparing for lull periods around holidays, etc.? There's numerous out there, but I'd have to take the lead in what Rowing WA or Rowing Australia are advocating in the first instance. And if not, we'd have to create it. Ideally, you come from the peak body, but I don't want to put unnecessary obligation on you at the same time. But ideally, that's what I see in other sporting codes. It's coming from the peak body. Yeah. So watch this space. But ideally, Lisa, you're going to be doing this. Yeah, it's a bit of an undue expectation, as we say in the game, Lisa. And have you had success with that? Yeah. Yeah. And since you're getting zero replies, I wonder why, like, you know. Oh, look who it is. It's Lisa again. Don't bite the hand that's feeding you, Lisa. What did I say about playing friends as volunteers, Lisa? Just because we're not all wearing the t-shirts, you know what I mean? Like, you know. Clear policy, confidentiality is a big thing. Volunteers, they want security of mindset. They know that the data they give you, their personal data, is private and confidential. And you give them that assurance that it will be. All right. And prompt action if issues arise. That's a big thing. People are there's a lack of trust out there with clubs and associations that nothing gets actioned on in any expedited fashion. It takes weeks or months. They want an assurance that it'll be done quickly and fairly. So you need to outline what your procedures are around that to them as part of the induction as well. But confidentiality is a big thing with people now given online data. So they need assurances around that as well. How are you storing it? Where are you keeping it? How are you updating it? Show me your your confidentiality policy. I can request a copy of that as a volunteer. Because that's a nice segue into, you need to understand that they have entitlements as much as the club has entitlements. They have entitlements as volunteers. So we've seen, unfortunately, horrific cases where volunteers are suing clubs, right? Yeah, because the clubs haven't, because you're signing a contract. If the club aren't delivering any of that, or the club are stepping over the line, right? People have sued them. So it's malpractice. So you need to be very careful. This is what I'm saying. Clubs need to sit down with their lawyers and look at how they structure this narrative, how to put together this plan, what wording to use, what's not open to interpretation. Because I've seen volunteers who are lawyers strip it apart. Okay. Retaining them for the long term, right? So most clubs I have a volunteer anniversary evening. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years as volunteer. So they have those basically every year, recognizing the people who've stayed there that long or even longer. I'd do that. And again, it creates that sense of belonging, meaningful feedback, recognition programs, and leadership opportunities. Now, if I'm coming to a club today, they're my expectations. That's what I want to see. if I'm not seeing those four kind of pillars, I'd be quizzical of that club. And it is succession planning because, as I said, you should have a very good volunteer program that allows you to think about 5 and 10 years' time, prepare future leaders, knowledge sharing, and smooth transitions. Because ideally, if you get the best of the best as volunteers, you want a continuity of approach whereby they come board or committee members. Your whole ideology here is not to lose them, but to keep them happy and keep them satisfied and keep on giving to them as much as they want to give to you. There's a sense of pride about being in a club, right? But it's also, it can be a sense of obligation. It can't become a cult. Once you're in, you can never leave. All right. Well, I can, and I will, and I am. Okay. Sorry?
I feel like you could never leave.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the captive environment mindset. It's endemic in Australian sport for some unknown reason. Yeah, exactly. But that's not the case, right? Again, we're back to being time poor as Australians, right? What are you thinking, Lisa? Whole new world, brave new mindset? I think most of Australian society will disagree with you on that one, but anyway. You're a future chairperson in the making, aren't you? Well, you know what I'm saying as a point, right? So whatever we feel about it, whatever we think about it, it's still a blatantly obvious component of society as we are today, right? So it's understanding that you will have a different view in that. So you will have committee members, Lisa, who will not come to you and say, I'll be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Because 5 o'clock in the morning does not work for them. Right? They could be a shift worker, they could have a young child, they could basically have other work commitments or other personal commitments, right? Or have distance doing the problems doing the commute. So as a club, you have to make the decision, do we accommodate that or we don't accommodate that? Where do you draw the line? Now that's a club decision. It's not my decision to make for you as a club, but the club have to make that decision, right? Do we push it out so we want to get people in, or do we go, we're steadfast and you have to assimilate into us? Ideally, you'll find a happy hybrid. Okay. Practical tools and resources out there. So policy templates, right? Or now a lot of this is available from Volunteering WA, which is really, really good. Your peak body, I'm sure, will have some as well. And Volunteering Australia, orientation materials I need to see from your club, and administrative forms. Again, reimbursement claim forms, appreciation certificates are the norm I see in volunteering, as well as signing the volunteer policy and the volunteer induction and a volunteer handbook. Every club should have a volunteer handbook, right? So if I show aspiration to join, or I do join, I get a copy of the handbook, or I read it online, whatever the case may be. But I definitely didn't, and after reading it, I come to do the volunteer induction. The club volunteer platform, which most sports associations have, is the app, is the utensil, is the tool, and it allows you to look at management of your volunteers, basically. So every club will need one of those, or a sporting association. Yeah, yeah. Okay, great, excellent. Okay. So the Australian Sports Commission have a sports volunteer resource hub, which is very, very good and well worth a look at that. Volunteering Victoria is one of my personal favorite ones, even though we're here in WA. They've got a nice management toolkit with frameworks, templates, and evidence-based strategies. Volunteering WA would have an equivocal, but I think Volunteering Victoria is very comprehensive. And then your local sport, which is your local council, have a lot of resources for sports clubs through their sports officer in local government, wherever you're based in whatever LGA you're in. And obviously, this state government department here as well today. So there's numerous free resources out there. in terms of volunteering mindset, strategies, and templates. Something for the weekend, right? And ever more. And it is about continuity of approach as well. So once we implement this, I'll just finish the point. Once we implement this, you got to measure this and appraise this then in 12 months' time to see it's still working for you. Yep. Yeah.
Like their
Yeah.
kind of key engagement with the club is just in a volunteering capacity.
Yes. Yeah. So we have the natural affinity, which is people involved in rowing, knowing of rowing, have a family member involved in rowing, or traditionally the family over 3 generations is always committed to rowing. They're your mainstay, right? You're always going for them first and foremost. I'm working off the 80-20 rule. That's 20%. 80% is everyone else. 80% is the general public. And how do we get them on board, involved in rowing into, and splitting that down the center? Some people want to come and go, I have no interest in getting in a boat and rowing, but I'm interested in volunteering for your club in some other capacity. So you got to have an answer to that question for me as to how can you employ me in the club as a volunteer? Do I want to be a committee member? Do I want to be an administrator? Do I want to be a volunteer coordinator? Do you need me for major events? It's every time I just see clubs, they go, oh, we got to get you in a footy Guernsey or we got to put you in the boat. No, 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 you don't. Because it's back to skill set identification. What do I want to do? Yeah, 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 correct. Yeah. So this is what's been done already with sports clubs with TAFE and schools. They're getting a free labor force, but they're incentivizing the labor force to learn on the job. It can be monetary. It's always better if it's monetary, but it doesn't have to be. No obligation. Oh, look, happy days. But it's also that you have a whole load of tertiary level students who need to implement what they're being taught. So I've clubs that go, we need a new website. Well, they go to a tertiary level student and they get it designed for free because they get the naming rights and get it on their CV and their portfolio. By the time they get a job, they go, I've done all this work. Or someone who's managing your social media for you. So my local footy club have a 17-year-old managing their social media. He wrote a social media strategy, wrote a social media policy, and now does the maintenance of the social media across 3 platforms for the club at 17. Now it gets remunerated, not by industry standard, but he's happy with that at 17. He's getting dollars in his pocket, but the club can afford it. They worked out the cost benefit and they can afford it for what they're paying, what they would have paid in market. That's thinking outside the box. That's thinking smart. But you need to sit down and look at that's an audit of your club to what you need. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You need a bit of both. A bit from pool A and pool B. And this is what I'm saying about time management. I respect your view, but at the same time, most Australians, what I'm hearing, we're time poor. So I'm happy to pay my way out of it rather than have to commit to it because I just don't have the time. Some are. All right. So being realistic. So case studies and success stories, basically, local netball club, the challenge, the solution, and the results, right? And this is what we work through with them basically as a netball club about coming up with the problem versus solution. Comprehensive volunteer policy, clear role descriptions, formal recognition programs on a quarterly basis, Establish a mentoring system. Mentoring works really well. People love mentoring now, right? Mentoring is very important. You got to start talking that way and thinking that way as a club. The people who've been there for 10, 20, 30 years, how can they pass the baton on to the next volunteer and then alone next club member? So even your skill set, Lisa, how long have you been in the club? There you go. So even in 2 years, you can share a lot of that IP with people, right? So it's doing that. Okay. Mentoring works well. So this is the volunteer turnaround because it allows the club to look at where they are to where they need to be and how they're going to get there. But with that Net Club, we saw a 40% increase in volunteer retention in 12 months. That's huge. 40%. That's enough to be substantive to keep the club alive and going. All right. Technology, right? So we worked with a volunteer coordinator with a rugby club in Queensland. And again, the club volunteer program, the online, it takes the phone calls out, the text out, everything's through the app. Forget even about WhatsApp, it's through the app, right? So 75% fewer conflicts they had in the club, 89% satisfaction rate, and 12 hours saved weekly on admin. That's a massive turnaround for a local club. That's the way you need to be thinking. How do we achieve those figures? Streamline the process. We lost Helen. She's waiting in the lobby. Having fun, Liz? Having fun yet? Oh,
I'm back.
hello, Keith. Hello to me. Okay.
Hello.
I still can't see her now. I've lost her.
Oh, where have I gone? Oh dear. Very odd. There we are.
There he goes. Helen back. Hello, Helen. Welcome back.
Thank
Or
you.
good morning, should I say to you, given you in the UK.
Been snowing here.
We've done a full day of volunteering here already, Helen. You're way behind us, like. Helen, you're from a club here in WA, right?
No. Can you hear me?
Membership, yeah, okay, come. All right, very good.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, so creating a volunteer experience that works, and that's your experience framework you're trying to build, right? So I should see that as part of my induction. Because this is your mantra. That's it, take the photograph, come on. Oh, wow, you play nicely, don't you? You're such an inclusive club. Get out of the way.
Finish that. I haven't finished that.
So I need to see easy, belong, tailor, support, and value. And I'm using those words deliberately, right?
Yeah.
To create the mindset that I want from the volunteer. We've gauged this is what they want when asked and polled and surveyed. Okay. Now look at the bottom line. The framework ensures volunteers have a positive, rewarding experience and encourage long-term commitment to your club. You should be saying that as a mandate to volunteering in your club. Okay. Very important. But again, make sure you're ticking all of those boxes, not just some. So implementation, it's a step-by-step process, as I said, because you're measuring and appropriating each as you go. So straightforward sign-up processes, clear role information, minimize bureaucratic barriers that are in the club. Host social events, create buddy systems, the mentoring program for new volunteers, inclusive environments, offer flexible time commitments, match tasks to skills, accommodate individual circumstances and preferences, deliver comprehensive training, open communication channels. They have the tools and guidance to do the job you're asking them to do, and regularly acknowledge contributions, celebrate achievements, and demonstrate genuine gratitude for volunteer efforts. Not too much to ask, right? No. So the common challenges: overcoming the recognized warning signs early on, decreased enthusiasm or engagement, increased absences or tardiness, visible stress or exhaustion, withdrawal from social interactions, and declining quality of work. No, but it's not about you. It's about everyone else. We know you're going to be there. That's not the problem. The problem is everyone else. All right? So again, I'm just saying this as well. It's great, that works for you, but it's not going to work for everyone else, right? So it's recognizing I may encounter some of this through mitigating circumstances, not of my own doing. Prevention strategies: offer regular breaks, rotate responsibilities, emotional support. Recognize when people are going through out of club experiences, right? Things that affect them in their professional or personal life. Okay. So again, it's worst case scenarios, and I'm seeing them all basically at the end of the day. We had a female volunteer last year who unfortunately had a miscarriage, to which the club said, I don't see the problem. You should still be here this coming weekend. That's behind you now, so you should be here. Is that the correct response from a club? No. Exactly. Okay. Managing diverse volunteer expectations: communicate transparently, embrace flexibility, celebrate progress. You can see what I'm reiterating. You can see what I'm hammering home again and again and again. Clear, realistic expectations of what you want from those volunteers, open dialogue on roles, responsibilities, and club capabilities. Because we now have volunteers going, what's the 5-year strategy of the club? Why should I commit to this club if the club doesn't know where they're going themselves? Great question. Right? So astute volunteers will come with questions. You need answers as a club. Yeah. Enhance flexibility, as I said, accommodate individual needs, and celebrate progress as well. The small wins, quarterly, half yearly, yearly, to show that basically you're there for them and there's a reward for their commitment in some way, shape, or form. So we need to embrace a different way that you want to get them as volunteers, and different way they can work for you as volunteers. So the future is digital transformation, as we talked about, diversity and inclusion and well-being focus. This is what I'm working with most clubs and associations, because this is what society needs. So we're reflecting the needs of society. That shows we're inclusive in society and we're adapt to what needs to happen in society. So you need to be thinking about how you modernize and transform digitally, how you're inclusive as a club, and you have a well-being focus. Questions, comments, clarification? Request for river dance, Irish jokes, all parts of the service. You want jokes or the river dance, or both? You want the river dance? I'll go back and didn't know we listed river dance as a sport in Ireland, but I'll go back and have a word with them. It's an art. Dance is an art, not a sport. Yeah. Yeah, but it's seen as arts though, because it's dance. Yeah.
I'm going to go through all of this sector. At Marlow, we do a lot of this. We recognise volunteers on our weekly newsletter. We also have a Volunteer of the Year trophy award.
Yeah. Well done,
Super. Having doubled in size over the past 10 years, we need more volunteers, and not always the same people doing everything, usually in the masters section.
That is 100% it. It's always the masters section.
Yeah.
None of the kids do anything.
But ideally, you're trying to thank you, Helen, for that as well. Appreciate all that. That's fantastic and well done to the club as well, basically. Rowing in the snow. Well, okay. Is it? Okay. Good on you. Fair play. How many degrees? Well, what was the temperatures here today? Yeah, it was lovely, mild 31 degrees here, Helen, here today. So a bit of a nip in the air. Had to, wear the beanie and the gloves, obviously, Um, I'm an Irish. I understand the weather you're going through right now. I'm getting all sentimental now, actually, for that kind of weather. Um, the it's both ends of the spectrum, though. We need to be looking at definitely the seniors, right, but also the juniors at the end. And so it's a plan that works for both, really. At the end of the masters are integral, right, because they're the present cohort. But I'm also concerned about the future. So we need to look at both, right? The masters nearly can be the mentors. They're the ones that justify the future, right? If they're happy, everything else kind of falls in place. But it's the future at the end of the day. It's the kids and the diversity of kids, right? So, and again, it's, before I left Sydney yesterday, I had an appointment with one of the private schools, one of the private boys' schools. And I was brought to the General Assembly in the morning. And again, there was not one Caucasian person in that General Assembly, which is great in one way. I think it's fantastic, right? It's inclusive in society, but not one. So they're getting a lot of multicultural funding as a school, right? So it's reflecting society in terms of being cognizant of what society is changing and who the people are coming as membership at the end of the day. Okay. Engaging younger volunteers, as we just talked about. Last one's interesting. Meaningful fun. So, do you think I would ever claim at my age to know what a 17-year-old would be interested in considering as fun? I wouldn't speculate. But I'd get a 17-year-old to lead a youth program, a youth volunteer program in my club. I'd get a 20-year-old to lead a youth program in my club, not a 50-year-old, not a 40-year-old. Right? So they need to see their own. They need to work with their own. They have a greater appreciation for that. All right, ones that are a couple of years older than them, obviously. Right, development opportunities. What I love about the younger generation is, you give them the carrot and the stick, they'll chase after it. And I love that, and it's very much giving them development opportunities where they see the opportunity, the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think that works for everyone of all age sets as well. And given this society has grown up in a digital age, and I come from an age that I haven't grown up and I've had to assimilate and learn a digital age, I think it's about working more closely with them around that TikTok content, as I said, and the content strategy. This is why I said that club is a 17-year-old doing all this for them. Because this is how they speak, this is how they converse, this is how they operate, is using digital platforms. Okay, so again, it's about, I'm not going to ask you to do these now, but these are exercises you would do internally in your club. Why are you laughing? All right. Okay. Turned up. Yeah. But this is why it has to come from on top. This is why you start with the board, you start with the committee, and then you work out, and the board then mandate to the rest of the club that they have to do it. It's just stipulatory. Never going to change. Some things you're just going to have to mandate because people just go, no. It's not a volunteer contract. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a two-way street. If the club don't do it, they're responsible. If the volunteer don't do it, they're responsible. The volunteer can be asked to leave, or the volunteer can say to the club, I'm leaving because you haven't upheld your end of the bargain. It is a job. It is a job completely. And this is why I don't understand clubs when they don't have an induction or a position description or a recruitment strategy. Because it's a job. And a job you're not even getting paid for. Right? And as a club, you got to have security of tenure. You got to look after yourself as a club. Unfortunately, there are unscrupulous people out there who will take advantage of scenarios and situations in clubs. If I had $1 for every time I was told by a club about a financial indiscretion or a financial misappropriation, I wouldn't be here standing in front of you. I'll be on my yacht around the Cayman Islands. Because the amount of money I see go missing in clubs. So I only have to go and troubleshoot something in Adelaide next week with a club because the committee took $75,000 out of that club. Because there's no checks and balances in that club. There was no paper trail. There was nothing. And when you forge signatures and your best mate is the treasurer and keeps on taking money out, no one asks for an annual report or no one asks for P&Ls and no one asks for a financial statement because they didn't know they had to. Worst case scenario. A recruitment plan. Define your target profiles of who you target as a volunteer. Map communication channels. Craft your messaging. Create action timeline of when you need this to happen. And as a club now, I'm advocating quite strongly, you should be looking at now for 2026. I know we're coming into Christmas, but you got to be thinking now. There's no point coming back in February and thinking about we're going to look at this now, then. Right? In some way, shape, or form, we need to be looking at this in the minutia now, in the next couple of weeks, to think about what are we going to do for 26. Not get to 26 and then trying to work it out. Volunteer recognition program. So we got formal and informal. All of these are achievable as well. Annual award ceremony, certificates of appreciation, volunteer in the month and year, service milestone celebrations, public acknowledgement at events. That's formal, informal, personal thank you notes, social media shout outs, coffee catch ups, small tokens of gratitude, behind the scenes club tours. Okay. So for the 5 years I was in my club, I got the history of the club book, got a club tie, and I got $50 put in the club bar for me. After 5 years. So understand the motivations of why you're getting involved in volunteer management, what you want to achieve from it, but having to retain volunteers, implement policies, provide support to them, and recognize contributions. That's what's going to get you through having a popular and successful volunteer program for yourself. Review, and review again consistently your policies and your procedures on volunteer management. Engage with your committee continually. They should have a top-down, bottom-up approach in this, whether you have a volunteer coordinator or not. Explore the digital tools, particularly around your club volunteer and what you need to do around that, and launch a recognition program for your volunteers. That's probably the easiest thing that you can do now. Launch a recognition program and then work backwards from that. And thank them. I don't see enough of it. It may sound blatantly obvious, but I never see enough of thanking them. Simplest thing to say and do and acknowledge, but thank them publicly, personally, hold a forum, all those different things. Questions, comments, clarification? Helen, feel free to set through some comments or questions that you have.
Thank you.
How are we doing?